We have an agenda today that's going to take us through a little bit of the history, the mission, the structure of the League, how we do our work around programs and studies, how our teams are formed, and issues we're currently studying. Carrie Chapman Catt founded the League in 1920 at the convention of the American Women's Suffrage Association, which convened 6 months before the ratification of the 19th Amendment. Through education, the League's mission was to help the new voters make informed decisions. Next year, we will be 100 years old.
So this newly acquired power was supported by the League of Women Voters and helped the women at that time to participate in their government and to assist in shaping public policy. They quickly became involved in a number of issues. One was called the Cable Act for Independent Citizenship of Married Women, which actually became law in 1922. By 1924, the National League organized in 346 of the 433 congressional districts in this country. So they grew very quickly. Women were eager to take their part in the process of helping form the policies in the government. They also, in this period of time, sponsored the very first Get Out the Vote campaign, probably designed at that point to make sure that women got out to vote now that they had that privilege. But it was designed for all voters, and that's where the League has led to educating all voters. In 1945, President Truman invited the League to serve as consultants to the U.S. delegation at the UN Charter Conference. The League involved helped the UN to become formed and is still involved with the UN with one official and 2 alternates who serve as observers at the UN. In the last 70 years, the League has addressed a myriad of other issues, and just a few are the suffrage for Washington, D.C. citizens, which is still in the works. As Nancy said, when she lived in Washington, D.C., she couldn't vote. They have supported the ERA, which has still not been ratified by our Congress. They've advocated for the election by popular vote of the president. Dozens of positions on various aspects of our environment. Our League here has been involved in the past in having positions relating to the environment. I won't go into those right now, but in 1974, the League decided that it was time to let men participate as well. So we now have men in our League here as they are in leagues all across the country. And they are very active. As in our membership, we allow a second member of a household. So if you have a spouse that might like to be involved, they get in for half price. The League sponsored the very first televised debate since 1960 and won an Emmy Award. They have been active in voting rights, tax reform, arms control, national security, and reproductive rights. The League has always been a grassroots organization. They've been activist, dedicated to involving the citizens in an active role in political participation and advocacy. We have a mission. In fact, we have 2. The one that is in our roster is the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major political policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. A streamlined version of that, which we are using as well, is empowering voters and defending democracy. That kind of wraps it up. So our vision statement, along with that, is we envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate.
So Jody mentioned that the organization really relies on its grassroots power. And that takes us to talk about how the League is structured. We are structured just like the government, with the national, federal level, the state level, and the local level. At each of these levels, we have a board, which is elected, national board, state board, and locally we call ours the administrative team. But they are elected members who oversee the work of the League, the financial overseeing, as well as the programmatic and the outreach work. Each of those boards has a time when they set their priorities for the year, and each of those boards has annual meetings, or in the case of the state and the national, those are biannual. So every other year, the National League holds a meeting, convention, to which delegates from all the local leagues go, as well as the state leagues. And on the alternate years, we have a state convention. This is the year for a state convention. So in 2019, we will have a Colorado State Convention, and each local league will send delegates based on the number of members that they have. At those annual meetings or conventions, they adopt a budget, elect officers, boards, and their priorities are finalized by those delegates. Each of those levels also can put together publications after they've done studies. And I have one here that came out of a study from the Colorado State League, but the National League also has materials that they produce after, say, the immigration study. And we, at the local level also, after doing a study, would put together publications. So those are some of the different things that you can read on any given level. Each of them have a website, and if you haven't looked around the national website, I encourage you to do that. There's a wealth of material there for the public, and then there's also a website for the league leaders and league members in the league management site, with resources, campaign materials, other kinds of ways that we connect with each other, also across the platforms now that we have the internet. So websites, boards, publications, campaigns. We currently have a national campaign, Making Democracy Work, which has a range of issues under it, and that has been also affirmed by the state, and we affirm it locally also in the way that we prioritize what we do with our people and our resources. So that's the three-part structure.
In the League, when it was formed, was to be all political but nonpartisan. And the nonpartisan is that we never ever endorse or support any candidates for political office or any political parties for government offices. So in our league itself, partisan politics really do not play a role. We wear our league hat when we are in our meetings, so partisan issues or candidate issues do not necessarily come up unless we have already studied an issue that perhaps one party or the other may be supporting, and we may advocate to support that if we have a position after a study. But on the other hand, we may also choose to oppose it if it does not fit with our position. So the League urges you, as I said earlier, to become politically active. We have several elected officials that are in our league currently, and we're proud to have them there. When they're with us, though, they adhere to our nonpartisan policies. We do have a few people who have some restrictions when they're in a high visible role, such as Anne, who's our spokesperson, against putting lawn signs out or being openly active in a partisan kind of campaign. So, league hats on, nonpartisan. League hats off, you go for it.
So now we're going to spend some time talking about what we call our two arms of the league. On the one hand, what most public people see is our work on voter education, voter registration, whether it's candidate forums or the ballot issues pamphlets or registering voters. But we have a second part, which is really very instrumental in what we do with our time and our people, and that is studying and taking action on issues.
I'm going to talk about a couple of aspects that we have in League that deal with education. Appropriate, since I've been a teacher, it's a passion for me. And again, I said earlier, one of the things that hooked me was the study. But another thing that hooked me was I had the opportunity to work at naturalization ceremonies a lot. And there are few things in life that will give you a warmer feeling if you are at all interested than being able to participate in that kind of ceremony and help register people who are new to this country. We're visible. We're visible to the public. And so it's sort of considered the foundation, the bedrock, the core with voter registration activities. And our voter registration activities in this league are extensive. We do a wonderful job, and it has grown and continues to grow. We also do voter education that's not necessarily registration. In other words, we try to help people understand about ballot issues, and we help people understand about things that are important to our democracy, different issues, without necessarily promoting either one of them, the pros and cons of certain kinds of issues that are going on. Also, the campaigns to get out the vote. And when we try to do things like that, again, we always are particular about being nonpartisan in those activities. We don't ask, we don't offer. So specifically, one of the best activities, if you're new to League entirely, to get involved in is the voter registration. We have a coordinator, Linda Thomas, who puts together registration drives, works with the Secretary of State to make sure that everything that we do in that is on the up and up. We concentrate a lot on high schools, colleges, food banks, community centers. We try to get a broad set of opportunities for people to register to vote. We've done, some sort of festivals, Ben and Jerry's down at the downtown Fort Collins. We do have non-members who help with it, and we often coordinate with other groups that are doing voter registration to make it a success. Another part of our education, and this is one that I am passionate about because I do a lot of the setup on the website, vote411.org. How many of you have ever accessed vote411.org? It is a wonderful website. It's a national website, and our state buys into it, our local league buys into it, and what we do is we put out, we ask candidates a series of questions, not too many, and ask them to respond and give their biographical information, and they give us their positions on some basic kinds of things and their qualifications. And all of this is put into this website. And it's accessible to the public very, very easily. All they have to do is put in their address if they're a registered voter, and Vote 411 will give them a personalized ballot before an election. And they can see everything that they're going to be voting on, what their ballot looks like. And it's not just the candidates, although that's a very important part of it. It's also the issues, the ballot issues that will come up, which is extremely helpful. People really like that because they can be very complicated. In order to, we also have voter registration links to the state so that you can change your voter registration, and it's possible through Vote 411 to look at many, many different other leagues throughout the nation to see the kinds of things that they have up there. Lots of information, so I encourage you to check it out if you haven't done so, especially right before an election. With regard to the ballot issues, one of the things that is done is a lot of research and writing of the pros and cons, and we publish unbiased information. It's unbiased as we can possibly be, and we work hard to make it happen so that people can look at those issues and compare and decide how they want to vote. We also then hold forums prior to an election. Sometimes they are candidate forums. In fact, they almost always are candidate forums. And also ballot issues forums, and that is that we have public discussions in which the candidates can present their point of view, and these are moderated extremely well by league members. We have a reputation for that. In fact, on several occasions, we've been asked to do it. Would you please come and moderate this election? Or to put out a forum. And so that's been a compliment here in Larimer County that we are trusted to do that. Getting out the vote. Last year, voter registration had this is an example, a grant that was for registering high school students and then following up. And we asked them if we could send postcards to remind them to vote. And sometimes we could ask them, can we text you to remind you to vote now that you are registered? So we do some other kinds of get out the vote activities. Now, one of the things that is not a part of the voter service team, but is a part of our league, is a program called Cross Currents. And it's a TV program that provides a public forum that, again, balanced and fair discussion on controversial issues that face the community. And it's moderated by the league and produced actually by the city of Fort Collins. And we get panelists. The Cross Currents team gets panelists that have different points of view on the issues in the community, in the county, and the state, and the league, or the country. So they're taped before a live audience, and then they are available. They occur about 6 to 8 times a year, and they're replayed. And we have them on our website so that you can go. I think the most recent one was a discussion about capital punishment. And it's available. If you go to the website, you can see that kind of thing as it has been produced. That is, again, a cooperation with the city. We don't do that if we are in favor of a particular issue or against. That's part of our education rather than our advocacy.
On the back of the yellow booklet or on this handout called the program, how we do it, is a little flow chart of how that works. And I'm going to talk through that a little bit because next Monday night at our meeting, we will be starting this process when we discuss what issues we have and whether or not we want to add new issues to our plate for study or action. So program in the league consists of the governmental issues that league members choose for this concerted study and action. It includes positions upon which we have already studied and reached a consensus. And those can be at either the local, the state, or the national level. And for example, at the state level, we have this collection of study material, background briefly, and the position that resulted from that study. And we have the same thing at the national level in this booklet. And these are both available on the websites. And we also have some packets of information about our local studies that we've undertaken and what the resulting positions were of those. The League program process begins, as I said, with the selection process and the adoption for study. And we will do that next Monday night. And this year, we will be looking at local issues that we want to either study or set as priorities for action, and state issues. On alternate years leading up to a national convention, we would look at the local issues again and then at the national issues. So this year in preparation, our teams have been looking through our state positions and saying, we have a position on behavioral health that was adopted a couple of years ago. Is that position strong enough for us to take action at the state legislature? Or have we missed something that left us unable to comment on a piece of legislation? And if so, can we do an update of that study and arrive at a new element that we can add to that? So that's just the process. So as you see here, the top box is members select the issues, and these are generated from all of us sitting around and a lot from our teams who have really been in the weeds on affordable housing or civil liberties or international relations, healthcare. But also from the members at large who suddenly see something on the horizon and recognize that the League doesn't, at the national, state, or local level, have any position that would enable us to take action. And so they say, we're missing this. I think that we ought to study this. So at that time that we select issues next Monday night, we will forward our ideas from the state level issues to the state board, who will collect them at the same time from all the local leagues in the state and see if there is a cluster of them, either for a new study, an updated study, or just to maintain the positions that we have. And then at the local level, our admin team will take the conversation and say, seems like there's a rising interest in studying XYZ or whatever. And do we have the people power and the resources to really do this? Is it clearly focused for us to take that study on? So we have some questions that any level of a board will ask as an issue comes to it. So once that passes through that board process and comes back to either the local convention or the state convention or the national convention and is adopted by the delegate body as a new study or an update of a study, then a resource committee is formed of people who want to really do the research and dig into it and kind of frame what the questions are that we will be answering by doing the study. And then that material is disseminated to all the leagues. Say if it's coming from the state level, a state resource committee would compile it, send it out to the locals. We at the locals take that state material, put our own teamwork around it, localize it with our local scene, interviews, reading, contact, observing boards, discussion. And then we have an opportunity to discuss that as league members and then arrive at a consensus. That is an understanding of what we believe about that issue that is framed usually around 3 or 4 questions. At that time, our consensus is then approved by the board, whether it's the local or the state or the national, and then that becomes a position statement from which we can take action. So we get to the action part, especially now at the state level when we have the state legislature that is meeting. At the state level, we have one part-time paid lobbyist, and we have a legislative action committee of between 15 and 25 league members who are at the Capitol every day during the legislative session, who are monitoring what is going through the legislative process. The Legislative Action Committee meets every other Friday, and they look at the bills that are coming, have been introduced, and they look at our positions at the national and the state level and say, do we have any position statement that will enable us to support or oppose this piece of legislation? Can we work with the sponsor to tweak it a little bit so that it can be something we can support? Those are volunteer lobbyists, and as I say, they are meeting every other week looking at selected pieces of legislation that the league believes have a good chance to make it through the process. And at the end of their meetings every other week, they put together what's called a legislative letter. And that is a report about the bills that they are going to be following during the session, with the background on League's position and where it is in the process. And you can subscribe to this through the state website, or you can just go on to the website where they're archived and look at what they're writing about the pieces of legislation. And if you're interested in going down to visit the legislature, we do that also sometime during the session. We can go down and observe the Legislative Action Committee, listen to the deliberations, go over, watch the House or Senate floor, visit committees, and listen to that. Or if there's a bill perhaps that you'd like to testify in support or opposition to, our League folks can help you do that. So that process of action is ongoing. The same thing is happening at the national level. So in DC, there are a number of leaguers from that metro area who are volunteer lobbyists for the League. And that's a huge group of people. And each one of them goes to the Capitol every so often. I don't know, there's 2 weeks or 4 weeks, but they are briefed by the national staff and are paid lobbyists at the national level. And then they go spread out over the hill to key members of Congress and talk to them about the League's position and how they want them to vote on that. And then they report back to us at the local level. Well, I visited Senator Bennett about this particular bill, and this is what his aide told me. Now is a time when you, at the local level, can also start to do your lobbying. So we as local members of the League have an opportunity at both the state and the national level to contact our members in the legislature or in Congress. And we do that as individuals. You can take the background that League has given you and the talking points, but you contact them as individuals. It's only our local administrative team or our state board lobbyists who will be doing in the name of the League lobbying. Okay, that's a distinction. So you can write letters to the editor about something. You can go and meet them at their office. You can go to the town hall, like some of us did this morning, and stand up and say, well, I know you're going to do this bill, Representative Art, on the death penalty. And I support you on that. And you don't say, because I'm a legal member, and we have a position for the death penalty. Okay, that's the backstory. But anyway, you get a lot of information from the League positions and discussions we have that will equip you as a citizen to speak out. So the action place piece here also leads into the lobby, testifying, writing letters. We can get action alerts. We get them from the state during the session. This bill is coming up. If you're in this district, please lobby your member of the legislature about that. Sometimes we work in coalitions with other organizations at the state level, and I think we will see that happening now, especially if the legislation moves along with regard to Tabor. And what Representative Arndt was talking about today, the League will be in coalition with other organizations, working on the messaging and the strategy, the grassroots education, and the lobbying. And we do conduct litigation, particularly the litigation that the League has been involved in most recently has all to do about voter protections, voter access, voter suppression, when that's been happening in states. The National League supports the state league boards in that kind of litigation work. Okay, then the evaluation of how our strategies have played out is ongoing. And again, as I say, it feeds back into then the next year as we start to look at the issues and see whether we've had the impact that we wanted to have or whether we need to tweak the position and add on to it a little bit. Yeah, that's a very quick overview. But I encourage you to come next Monday night when we have this discussion, because it's your time to really get in on the ground floor of how we select the issues going forward, particularly for the local level. The state ones are kind of in a 2-year cycle, but it's our time to really speak out on them also. What we have is the capacity to not necessarily do a new national study. If, for example, and I'll give you a true example of what happened 2 years ago. In the state of Colorado, we conducted a study of behavioral health. This was something that we did not have in our national positions or our state positions. And probably 4 years ago now, a number of local leagues at their program planning said, We really need some attention to substance abuse. We need attention to mental health. We have big gaps in our system. We have a problem with gun violence. And the state board heard this from a variety of local leagues and pulled that all into what came to be our study on behavioral health, which they made a resource committee for, and over a period of about 14 months did a lot of interviewing around the state with regard to what we had in place, where the gaps were around these three kind of areas, and then put them into discussion questions, which we then addressed at local league meetings around behavioral health. Coming out of that was our position on behavioral health, which was adopted about 3 years ago. The National League had no position on behavioral health. And so we, in our healthcare networks that we have across the country of league members, said, hooray, Colorado passed a position on behavioral health. And the people in Massachusetts and New York and California said, we don't have anything. We want it too. Let's take it to the national level. So we were able to take our state position to the national level by mobilizing all of those local connections that we had during that program planning year to say, please send into national that you want a behavioral health position. And Colorado has one. Let's do a process of concurrence with that, which means the delegates in the national convention would come, look at the state study that Colorado did, what we arrived at as our position, and say, we agree, and concur with it. And then that becomes an adopted position at the national level. So we did that in 2016. We took it to the national level, national convention, did our homework, lobbying all of our league friends around the country, which thanks to the internet now is so much easier than 20 years ago when we were sending mail to people. And that position then was adopted at the national level. So now our national lobby corps has a position on which to advocate around behavioral health issues, which, you know, with all the opioid crisis has really come front and center. And we started it because really our local league in Larimer worked on behavioral health. And then we took it to the state and to the national. So that streamlined it a lot. And, you know, I mean, I think it's possible that the death penalty, I think, also may have come up that way. I believe that the state in Illinois did their study way long ago and brought it to the national level for concurrence. Several states had done it, yeah. So that may answer your question a little bit more. It's a fascinating process. And like Ann says, you know, it takes a lot of time. But, you know, when you look at a variety of viewpoints and you really try to see what is out there, you come to the best decision. And that diversity of ideas really, I think, gives us a very a process with integrity, and as a result, the positions that have integrity and can withstand a long period of time. We don't often have new positions now because we have such a body of them that can be used in our lobbying. So we at the local level can use positions from the local, the state, or the national, and the state can use the state and the national level positions to lobby from.
Can I just add one thing? I mentioned the time, but one of the things that I have observed is how much the organization parallels, the league organization parallels what actually takes place in lawmaking. That length of time is often what it takes. So, you know, when you're advocating for something, don't get discouraged. It may take 2 or 3 times. And I think that's an important thing to remember. You know, that's one of the reasons to stick with it.
Well, you're probably all starting to wonder at this point, how do I get involved in this organization? Because as you can see, it's a large organization and there's lots of different moving parts. I think that the best way to get started is to, first of all, check out our website, the League of Women Voters of Larimer County. If you haven't done that already, it's a good time to do it now. And you can also check out the state and national websites so you have a good understanding of the organization at all levels. And then when you join, you will start to receive the league lines, which is our not our website, but it's our publication, our newsletter. It's our online newsletter. And League Lines comes out the first day of every month, and it tells you all of the activities that are coming up for the month. I try to sit down with my calendar and at the computer and write down everything I'm going to be able to get to. There's lots of different team meetings and so forth, some of which you'll be interested in and some not. And so you get down on your calendar the things that you'd like to attend. Then the middle of the month, usually the 15th, mid-month update comes out. And that is basically just a follow-up to the newsletter that will remind you of some events and also tell you about some of the new events that are coming up. Our league is organized a little bit differently than some other leagues. Most leagues have a general meeting every month on the same day. In the past, Larimer County hasn't had that. We have had a few general meetings through the year, but most of the time you have team meetings, and we have 3 different kinds of teams. The first type of team is the teams that support the organization, such as the admin team, the membership team. Those are teams that basically keep the organization running efficiently. And I think our organization, Larimer County League, runs very efficiently. And then the second type of team is the teams that basically support and provide services to the voting public, such as the voter services team. The voter services team does all of the voter registration. They run the candidate forums. They do all of those kinds of teams. And so that's a large team, and it's a very vital team to our organization. Then the third type of team are the issues teams. And we have many issues teams. There's the healthcare team, the environmental action team, the affordable housing team. There's many more. So as you watch for the different meetings that are coming up, I'd advise you, if you don't know where you want to jump in, to just try some things out. Any meeting you go to, you're going to be welcomed with open arms, because although we're a big league with, I think we have almost 250 members right now, we need all hands on deck for lots of different things, because we have lots of activities going on and lots of programs. One of the ways that I want to mention too is our league book club, the Informed Citizens Book Club. We have that is a meeting that happens twice a month, once at the Old Firehouse Bookshop in I think it's on a Wednesday. It's in Fort Collins. Second Wednesday of the month. And then there's another version that happens in Windsor, I believe. And so that's an opportunity that on League Lines, you'll see the list of books that the book club is reading. You can read the book or not. If you're just interested in the topic, show up and you'll enjoy the discussion. And so that's a good way to just, meet people, get involved a little bit, and learn about some of the issues and topics. The Observation Corps would be one of those teams that's like voter services. We're providing a service to the public. Our Observation Corps team has been inactive, and it's just getting started back up because we found a leader. So they would really like to have your involvement if you're interested in that. And basically what Observation Corps does is they go to public meetings like town hall meetings and city council meetings, the meetings of the Larimer County Commissioners, and just be there as an observer. You can ask questions, but not present any stands or positions. And then sometimes you take that information and take it back to some of the other teams that need to know about this is happening, and you need to be aware of it and get involved. Sometimes it's just being there, putting in that presence. And so it's really an important team. Loveland, because they're another community in Larimer County, they didn't start their own league. They just have a meeting of the Loveland people who live in Loveland and are members of the league. And they have usually a program that informs them about some political issues going on in Loveland. And it's a good way for people in that community to kind of form a bond. But they're Larimer County League members. Okay.
I'd just like to point out that we, as part of admin team, one of our missions, one of our responsibilities is calendaring. That means, with this many groups and this many teams, it can be a challenge. One of the things that we are beginning is general meetings once a month. And we've struggled with that for a bit, but it looks like it's going to land on the fourth Monday of every month. We will have a general meeting. So that should be coming out as an informational piece in mid-month update, which will be out on the 15th, or the next league lines, so that you can kind of plan. I mean, that's in addition. We thought it was a good idea to have everybody be able to come, and topics that we can share. Sometimes it's difficult to know what goes on in another team if you're not a member of that team. So that's one of the responsibilities of the admin team, which is composed of 9 members. It's essentially the board of the Larimer County League. Again, it's a little bit different structure. The president's not called the president, that's the spokesperson, but we do have that position as an office. Sort of the buck stops with that person, especially legally. I have to sign all the contracts and papers and things like that. For 2-year terms, they're elected at the annual meeting, and our local league does have an annual meeting in May. If I remember correctly, it's May 21st this year. It's already on the calendar. We meet once a month, and we go through and look at all the events. Each member of the team is of the admin team is a liaison to one of the issue teams or the voter service teams. Sometimes we overlap. There are 2 of us. In other words, we keep a contact with what the league teams are doing. And we try to, as I say, coordinate the calendar. And we have 3 major events of the year that we are responsible for. One of them is this program planning meeting that will be coming up this month. Another one is called Back to League Night, kind of corresponding to Back to School Night, in September. And then the convention, as I mentioned, in May. And admin is responsible for organizing and make sure that those meetings go as they should. We look at money. We have a treasurer. We also have a bookkeeper. That's a paid position to help us track the money. And our job is to keep the communication moving also between Colorado League and the National League and our members, without overwhelming with email and information. We also have what are called ad hoc committees or groups. We will have one in planning the celebration for the 100th. that's already starting to emerge. We have a couple of people who will be heading that and making sure that it goes forward, and are gathering ideas both from the national, from the state, from our own league members as to how we are going to celebrate that in 2020. The admin team is elected at the spring convention in May, and at that we approve a budget, adopt the program for the year, and when I say adopt the program for the year, that's the result of what is going to happen next Monday, a week from Monday night. That program planning meeting, listening to what people want to prioritize in terms of our work and advocacy over the next year, and whatever else comes up. The programs and activities are generally carried out by the team. And we have those 3 meetings, but essentially a lot of the admin team's work is just coordinating, communicating, and making sure that everything runs smoothly. I sometimes feel like with this many members and teams and such an active group, it's like putting an octopus in a box. But it's wonderful to see. It's awesome to see. We meet every 3rd Thursday, usually from 1 to 3. We have had exceptions to that. You're welcome to come. The only restriction that we have is if it has to do with personnel, then of course we would have a confidential part of that meeting, but it hasn't happened in my memory, which is not that long. And we meet in team members' homes. We rotate between homes. And so if you're interested in coming, send us an email. In fact, one of the things I'd like to say is encourage you to send us an email anyway. If you have a question and you can't find the answer, if there's something specific that comes up, we will try to answer it. And if you don't know, somebody in particular to ask the question to, you can always send it to the email on our website, which is info@lwv-larimercounty.org. And that's on the Club Express. Click, and it gets forwarded then to a person who does know the answer, or we ask the question. So that's a good way to find out more information if you are interested.
So when you join the league, you get a response saying, welcome to the league, your money has come through, or we're still waiting for your money. Here's your temporary password for the website. I encourage you to use that password, get in there, make a password that you can remember, so that every time you go to the website, you enter through your member portal. The calendar looks different for you than it does for the public. So you'll want to look at that. Also, when you become a member, you have access to a bar that says member information, and that has an electronic copy of our directory with all the members' names, addresses, emails. And it also has another section in which you can search the membership for who lives next to you, or who's on the election reform team, or who's on the healthcare team. You can do a variety of things with that search function. If you, during the course of the year, forget your password or want to reset it, please contact membership, and we will send you the link to reset your password. It's really important as we work with this new Club Express system that we get more of our members comfortable in using that to access our website, because a lot of information is there, but it's of no value for what we're paying unless the members are using it. Okay, so that's the website, the online directory. That's updated every month. A new PDF is posted. So those of you that have joined in the last month, by the first week in February, then your name and information will be in that directory. The other thing that you do when you join is you fill out a fairly extensive kind of survey of your interests. And that then becomes the database which the chairpersons of each of the teams will access, so that you can find out, the team leader will find out who's interested in election reform and be able to put you on the mailing list. Or the voter registration finds out you're interested in voter registration and will inform you of here's opportunities for you to serve. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to read the league lines, and if you see a want ad for people who are interested in going to the legislative day, just respond to it too. So a lot of responsibility does fall back on members, but you all are educated people. You can read, and we count on you reading to really engage with us a lot. Nancy mentioned this diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a national initiative which was adopted in 2016. And it is encouraging and supporting states and locals in developing strategies for working on diversity, equity, and inclusion in their membership, in their policies, in their outreach, and their mission impact work. And in our local league right now, we've had a couple of sessions for the members, and we will be having more of those, which are conversations really at this point. We're talking about what is diversity? What does inclusion mean? What is equity? Whether it's health care equity or other kinds of equity. Because we know that in a culture as ours, where many league members are white, educated women, we are not as diverse as our country is. So we're looking at how do we increase that diversity. If we really want to strengthen and defend our democracy, we need to bring everybody into the table. And that's really important as we go forward into the next 100 years of the organization. So the conversations on diversity, equity, and inclusion are something we're working on. The state is developing a strategic plan for them at the state level, which I think will trickle down to us at the local level too. But meanwhile, we're getting started with it locally. You know, and it has to do with where we do our voter registration, where we present our information about the ballot issues before elections, who has access to computers to find it online or get out to a meeting at the library to hear it. Where do we need to go to really engage all people in our community in making informed decisions? So that's the DEI piece. And if you're interested in this, please read the article in the January League Lines and click through and watch the videos or look at the article that was in that and then contact me, because we're looking for new members to come and help us with this if you have an interest or experience in that. We need to design what we're going to bring to our members and how we're going to include our members in that. Okay. When you're become a new member and after you've come to the orientation, we will match you with a mentor. That is another member who gets to know you a little bit, perhaps writes a biographical sketch for our league lines, helps you to find a place in the team that you might be interested in or an activity that you're interested in. And we hope that you'll enjoy meeting a new mentor and working with him or her. And then, you know, you're launched. So we look for you at the meetings, and we look for you to ask us questions and keep us moving, because really the league will only be as strong as all of our members are out in the community, engaging with the process and with other people, understanding our mission. For those who have not joined, I will mention that if you wait until February 1st to join, the dues do drop 50%. So just come on the 21st. Yeah, it's a half year. It brings you up to the time when we all renew. We all will renew in the fall in September. And so it's that half year until we get to September.
And
Yeah.
if anyone wants to join today, all you need to do is post-date your check.
Yeah, we can hold the check. So you can join by mailing a check in, or you can join online. Either way, and then take the survey and indicate your interests.